Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle for their support. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Your kids are on social media, and if they don't see content that you've created to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your own program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We'd like to thank Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, scores, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Well, Home Campus does all of these things and more, and it does them better and it does them faster. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thank you to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out all their great products today. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant AD did, along with thousands of others. And it was just a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's, Ohio University also includes 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. That's ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Master's Program in Athletic Administration. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but usually it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And having that data in your hands is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying right here in Florida today, and it's another in our ongoing series of the faces, and I guess the voices of the FHSAA, the Florida High School Athletic Administration. With us today is the newest member of their administrative team. We're going to be visiting with Malcolm Pollock. He's a FHSA administrator in that great area. We all love it. Eligibility and Compliance. Actually returning to Florida. He spent some time out of state, but we're going to hear all about that. Malcolm Pollock, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, you and I were talking, for our listeners, recording this on September 3rd. So it's going to be pretty timely when you're listening to it. School's starting back up. Some people are already a couple weeks into academics. Everybody in Florida is a month in now with sports and everything. Malcolm, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Take us up through your high school and college years in the next 2 minutes. But what's the Malcolm Pollock origin story?
Yes, so I'm originally from Jasper, Florida. I attended Hamilton County High School. I graduated from there in 2008. Played pretty much all the sports. Also was in ROTC, Sheriff Explorer, band. I was a kid that kind of was going to do everything just because I was kind of trying to figure out my path. I didn't know if I wanted to go to the military or be a cop or play sports. So I was just trying everything until I figured out what worked. Late in my high school career, had a growth spurt, kind of started focusing on basketball as my main priority. I had the opportunity to earn a scholarship to play at Southeastern University down in Lakeland, Florida. So I continued my education there in my basketball career, majored in psychology, minored in theology. I graduated from there in 2012, a little bit unsure as to what I wanted to do post-graduation. I wanted to continue playing, but I also had a heart for kids, and I knew I wanted to coach at some point. So I ended up getting a job volunteering at a local high school there in Winter Haven, Florida, New Beginnings High School. And that's where I got my first start at high school level. Went through the ranks as far as coaching goes. Started coaching high school sports, basketball specifically. Recently moved back from Charlotte, North Carolina. I was there for 3 years coaching and teaching, and had a chance to be an assistant AD also. So that's kind of my spiel and from birth to now, I guess you can say.
Well, we're going to hear more about your career in our next segment, but I'm going to go all the way back
Okay.
to Jasper. Now, I've been in Florida, since 2000. I've actually driven through your town. Share with our listeners, what kind of community and what size of school that Jasper was.
So Jasper is a very small community. I think we have 1, 2, 3 red lights. So it's a very small town. Very close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. It is hard to get away with anything there. There are some challenges in Hamilton County in general, just because it's not a affluent, place, not a bunch of resources and different things there. We do have a phosphate plant, a prison, and the school system for the most part. And so I spent the majority of my time there. It made me who I am. It made me a hard worker. Taught me so many valuable lessons that I still carry with me today. And more than anything, it made me it made me tougher. It made me tougher and made me positive and just grateful for opportunities, because I know that they don't come so often, when you come from certain environments, so I'm grateful to be in this position, just coming from where I came from.
You used one of my favorite words, and I don't think we hear it enough now. Tougher. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's a generation of parents, maybe it's this current generation, that doesn't
Yeah.
like it when we talk about, we're trying to make kids tough, because life is tough. You certainly know that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, can you think back? Well, before I get here, you already mentioned you did a lot of sports. But then, basketball, with your growth spurt kind of became your thing. Looking back at your junior high, high school days, was there ever any sort of pressure from a coach, hey, you shouldn't be playing that. You should just focus on, let's say, basketball, or hey, you shouldn't be playing basketball. You should be, you know, on this team. Was there any sort of year-round focus back then for you?
So not a year-round focus for us. Hamilton County is, multiple sport athletes. So, everybody played everything. It's the home of Alex Brown, Florida Gator legend. I mean, he played basketball, football, track, baseball. He did everything. And so that was kind of the spirit behind everybody. You played everything. And then for me particularly, I focused on basketball because I felt like it gave me my greatest opportunity, and it wasn't so hot in the gym. And so no coach ever really, harped on focusing on one specific sport back then. I will say that there were particular kids that were labeled basketball kids or football kids. The coach didn't necessarily pressure them to do it, but I would say gently persuaded based on, just presenting them with the facts of, hey, this is where you're going to make your money, or this is where you're going to have your greatest opportunity. And so, but I wasn't one of those kids that they got that. I was a late bloomer, extremely late bloomer. And so I played everything until I, decided to focus on basketball on my own. So no, it was no pressure for me particularly.
Okay. No, I appreciate you sharing that, and great
Yeah.
example about, the multi-sport culture, that was there in
Yeah.
your community. All right, here's the question I was going to ask you. You mentioned that growing up in Jasper, you had some great experiences, and you're going to tell us more about your career later as a teacher, as a coach, as an athletic director. Can you
Yeah.
think back to a moment, and maybe it was in junior high or high school, that at the time, it really didn't seem like much. But now looking back with wisdom and perspective, you can point to that moment and say, hey, that was a significant moment for me. Anything stick out for you?
Yeah, I have several of those examples. The one that comes to mind, I had an English teacher by the name of Miss Akins, and she was my English teacher during my senior year. Uh, Again, I was a kid who I didn't know going into my senior year that I was definitely going to college. I had never started on my basketball team. I was 5'9" as a junior in high school. So I was, I was going to do whatever made the most sense. And so we're sitting in class one day, and she spoke to me as if she knew I was going to college. And she said, when you go to college, you should major in psychology. And so I'm registering this as she's saying it. And I'm like, wait, when I go to college, like she's saying it with conviction, like she knows I'm going to go to college, and she knows something that I don't even know. And so she said that when you go to college, you should major in psychology. She said, because you're going to work with people, and you're going to need to know how to deal with people. And she told me that she majored in psychology, and it gave her flexibility because she was an English teacher, but she didn't necessarily go to college to study English. But she studied psychology, and it gave her a versatile background. And so I went to college, and my first 2 years, I didn't declare a major. And I ended up declaring psychology because I enjoyed learning about it. And I've navigated, the workspace through my psychology degree. And I really, really go back to that conversation I had with her because I don't know how she saw that I would work with people, and how, majoring in psychology would make me more diverse as far as my dealing with people. But it's almost like she knew me well enough to see that within me, and I didn't even see it in myself. And I'm so grateful that she called that out in me, just because she described me to the T in my career up until now. Like I've just been dealing with so many different types of people, and just navigating the workspace. And I feel like the advantage that I've had was studying human behavior, and knowing how to adapt and adjust regardless of the environment. It made me a better coach. It's made me a better father, a better husband, and a better friend, employee. It's helped me across the board. And I just go back to the random conversation that she just kind of passed on to me my senior year in high school. And she shortly resigned after this conversation, and I never saw her again. And so it was like that aha moment, and so I'm grateful for that. That was extremely pivotal for me.
Oh, wow. Great story.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
Yeah.
sharing it. But you're gonna have to, in your spare time, do a like a Google search, see if you can locate her, say thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go and take our first break. Once again, our guest today is Malcolm Pollock. He's a new administrator with the Florida High School Athletic Association in their Eligibility and Compliance department. When we come back, we're going to hear about his early career teaching, coaching, and also he was an AD too. But let's take that break. We're coming back for more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting today with Malcolm Pollock. I don't know where Adam came from. Malcolm Pollock. He's an administrator with our state association, the Florida High School Athletic Association. Malcolm, you shared with us your high school and college journey and your desire to, work with kids and be a teacher and a coach. Share with our listeners that journey that, started as a teacher, but then you also pretty successful basketball coach too.
Yeah, so some of the best advice my dad gave me, he speaks in parables often, but he told me to shoot my biggest gun before I turned 30. And what he meant was like, try everything that your heart desires. And when you turn 30, try to settle in somewhere. And so when I graduated college, that was my plan. I was like, hey, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I'm going to experiment and try everything that my heart desires. And then I'll just kind of hope that God kind of, settles me in where he wants me. And so I started as a volunteer at New Beginnings High School. And then I eventually landed a full-time role as the public relations coordinator. I went from there. I was a volunteer assistant coach at Southeastern University for 3 years. And then I got an administrative job there as a recruiting director or admissions counselor, I should say. So I was an admission counselor at Southeastern. And then I went overseas and played basketball for about a year. And then after I did those things, I'm like, hey, my end goal was always to be a teacher and a coach, specifically a guidance counselor and a coach. And so there was an opportunity that opened up at Hamilton County High School as a graduation coach. And my high school coach, Coach Patrick Murphy, he was kind of ending his coaching career. And so he invited me to come in and he told me the job was open. And so I went there and I was the graduation coach, and his assistant, he ended up retiring after my first year. So I took over as the head coach at Hamilton County High School, still the graduation coach. I went to Lincoln High School shortly after that and worked in discipline. Bounced around to Swanee High School, also as the head coach, taught world history, PE, and then the opportunity presented itself for me to go up to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I settled in at Concord Academy as the weightlifting PE coach, Bible, and then also assistant AD and assistant basketball coach there also. And so I was there for the last 3 years, just kind of establishing my family and getting settled in and kind of trying my hat at new things in a new place. So that was a great journey, but it brought me back here. And so I'm grateful for those experiences, because now in hindsight, it gave me so much diversity and experience that now that I'm in this role, I'm wearing multiple hats, and I'm talking to coaches and ADs and student athletes and parents. And I feel like I have a little bit of experience in all of those areas to where I can navigate this space kind of seamlessly.
Wow. Again, a ton of experiences, and I love how you can extract moments from each one to help you with your current job. There's an expression, we use it in the world of athletics, I think for coaches as well as for ADs, maybe other professions use it, but it goes, you don't know what you don't know. When you made that transition from, professional basketball player to now high school basketball coach, what were some things that you found out that you didn't know about being a coach?
Man, I attempted to coach the same way I was as a player. I thought a coach was a captain, right? I thought a coach was just a nice word for a captain of a team. And you realize as a coach, you actually wear more hats than you can even imagine. Basketball, the sport that you're coaching, is a small percentage of what actually goes into your day. And so between practice planning and dealing with issues within the school, making sure the funds are there, budgeting, fundraising, all of those things. I would say the thing that I realized that I didn't know how to coach. I knew basketball, but I didn't actually know how to coach the game of basketball. How do you articulate what's in your mind to 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids to the point where they can grasp what you're teaching them and apply it at a high level. And so I knew I could articulate the game, but teaching it to a 15-year-old kid who this may be his first experience. So when it comes to coaching, coaching is it's an art. It's a skill. It's not what a lot of people make it out to be. Like you can just jump into it and you know what you're doing. I feel like you have to I had to be around coaches to learn how to actually coach. I think I was a great motivator. I think I was a great developer of talent. But when it came to coaching the game and actually articulating the game to the simplest format so that kids can pick it up, apply it, and be successful, I had to learn that. And I undervalued that. I didn't know what went into coaching and what made good coaches good coaches. And so it was a humbling experience. But that was the first thing that I realized. I'm like, wait, the man who knows nothing, knows something, knows that he knows nothing at all. And so it was a humbling experience to say, hey, I've never coached before. I've played and I could be a great player, but I've never coached. And so I'm at square one when it comes to coaching the game. So it was a learning curve for me to learn how to coach the game itself.
Boy, I remember that vividly when I became a head football coach at a small high school, way, way before I should have been a head
Yeah.
coach. Um, I was fortunate. There was another young coach who had been there the year before as an assistant, and his dad was a retired Hall of Fame college football coach. And
Okay.
he was at most of our practices, most of our games, and just became a tremendous asset mentor.
Yes.
Hey, Jake, have you ever thought about doing this? Uh, and it
Yes.
was just
Yes.
so critical to my success. Had that not been there, had he not been there, I don't know if I would have had a 40 plus year career in teaching and coaching. Did you
Yes.
have an asset like that? Did you have a mentor along the way that, again, we both agree we didn't know what we didn't know. Did you
Yes.
have a mentor there to help you in some of your early stops?
Yeah, so I was a guy who I've always paid attention to people and pick up, what I can pick up from everybody around me and study, great coaches that came before me. But the people that were pivotal, there was a guy that I started coaching with at Southeastern by the name of RJ Barsh. He was one of the greatest motivators, and he could get a player to play, I mean, well above his potential. So I picked that skill set up from him, the motivating piece. Coach Patrick Murphy, to me, was one of the greatest examples of what a man should be as far as leading young men. Like, so he demonstrated that for me. When it came to the actual coaching side of things, the greatest resource that I've had was Stan Jones. He's an associate head coach at Florida State. and Matt Anderson. Matt Anderson was pivotal, and Coach Stan Jones actually paired me with Coach Anderson. He connected me with Coach Anderson. Coach Anderson has been a high school basketball coach for 30 plus years in the Panhandle. He's won several state championships. And me getting with him, the way that he taught the game, the way that he processed coaching and teaching. A true teacher of the game of basketball from an X's and O's standpoint. He taught me almost everything I know when it comes to the actual coaching of the game of basketball. And then through conversations with Coach Stan Jones, he was able to shed light on certain details that I may have, like kind of like you stated, that I may have not paid attention to. But those four, kind of combined are the people that I've, kind of, I guess modeled my coaching style after, those four individuals, which, Coach Barsh is now at Gonzaga, Coach Murphy's a pastor, Coach Anderson's still coaching high school sports, and Coach Jones is still killing it at Florida State. So I think those are four great individuals to model myself after, and all four are great, spiritual, examples as well. So great men.
Oh, wow. Great stories. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. It's great that you
Yeah.
can still be in touch with them now where they're coaching. Let's go and take another break. But once again, our guest today is Malcolm Pollock, longtime teacher, longtime coach, and now he's currently part of the Florida High School Athletic Association administrative team in eligibility and compliance. We're coming back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Gipper for their support. Your student athletes are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that you've created to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your own program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. The website is Gipper.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. Start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. We want to say thank you to our friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading rosters and results, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Well, Home Campus does all of these things and more, does them better, and it does them faster. And all you have to do to get started is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to thank Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. Take a look at their other great platforms. But we use SnapRaise at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it and our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You've just found your fundraiser. Snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Malcolm Pollock, and he's a longtime teacher and coach, also an athletic director who's now working for our state association, the FHSAA. Malcolm, you had success as a teacher, success as a counselor, success as a coach, and then you decided to come to the other side of the desk and become an athletic director. How did that all happen, and what are some things you can share with our listeners about that experience?
I'm at Swanee High School. I was, teaching and, coaching and enjoying it. Got engaged, got married. Me and my wife wanted to settle into a new place to kind of get a fresh start. And so we settled into Charlotte, North Carolina. I had some friends that were also living there. And so they connected me with Concord Academy. Concord Academy was previously CFA, Concord First Assembly. A great private school, really, really good basketball program historically. And so I had heard about the school. And so I reached out to the head coach during the season while I was still at Swanee, just kind of putting some feelers out. And so me and him set up a meeting for once the season ended, I was going to go up and meet with him. So the opportunity presented itself for me to go to Concord Academy and teach, coach, and also be assistant AD. And so I thought it was a great challenge, and I thought it was a great opportunity for me to kind of expand my professional experience. Just because, again, throughout my career, I've wanted to kind of pride myself on being versatile and diverse as far as my experiences, just because you never know how things may align. But I can tell you it was completely different being on the other side of the table. My specific, roles and responsibilities as assistant AD was kind of I was kind of the guy on the ground, the boots on the ground, kind of getting ahead of things before you see issues arise, making sure, that everybody, had a great experience once they visited our schools. Make sure, everybody, from the referees and security and everybody was accounted for, just to make sure things function seamlessly and make the AD's role a little bit less stressful. And so that was my goal, was to take pressure off the AD in any way that I could, in order to make things flow easier. So I was the guy who was going to stay late, so that he could, kind of go home a little bit earlier. So he didn't have to stay at the games late night. I was kind of the guy who was going to close up and make sure things were, kind of done well, prepping the fields, prepping the courts, making sure everything throughout the day was set up, so that, it was as simple as, people can walk in and enjoy the experience, and so whatever the game or practice or whatever we had going on. So it was different, because you kind of have to look from a different perspective, and you see things from a larger point of view versus just being hyper focused on your sport and thinking that only your sport matters, so you had to kind of be a bridge for everybody and remain, a resource to everybody. And so that was a challenge, because I still was also coaching basketball. So kind of have to balance, both sides of the scale.
I love those words that you use, bridge and balance. And, from the AD's point of view, you're absolutely right. It is that more global view than the head
Yes.
coach who, rightfully so, is focused on their program. Um, how did you, in your role as that assistant AD and then later on as an AD, how do you help? I'll use the word help head coaches, um, maybe not see, but understand and hopefully appreciate their part in that global athletic department, that it's not just, for example, Concord basketball. It's
Mm-hmm.
Concord athletics, and basketball
Mm-hmm.
is part of the team. So, how did
Mm-hmm.
you help coaches gain that perspective?
My methods, and even with coaching, teaching, everything is transparency. Transparency, and just laying it out. I feel like you get a little bit further with people when you lay it out, and put the all the apples on the table. And so when you're dealing with coaches, they appreciate your honesty and transparency. And I feel like you can move forward to a good result from there. The biggest thing for me is I would always let my coaches know is that I work for you, and so there's sometimes it feels like there's this hierarchy, but for me as an AD, assistant AD, whatever role I'm in, I'm of service. Even here at the association, I'm of service to you. So I'm here to help you in any way that I can. If it's with fundraising, if it's with participation, I want to make your job easier, by being of service. And so it was never this hierarchy you answer to me. It's, hey, how can I be of assistance to you today? What do you need from me today? And then from there, it was always transparency and accountability, but also the willingness to know that, hey, we're in the fight together. And I think once that is the case, because as an AD, the thought is that the AD is in support of whoever is the most successful team or whoever's bringing in the most money. That's how everybody chooses to see it. And so it seems like the football team is getting, preferential treatment, or the basketball team is getting preferential treatment. And so it's a tough fight to fight. But if your teams know that you're supporting them and your coaches know that you're supporting them, and you're at the games and you're supporting them and you're giving them attention throughout their seasons, and they feel like they have your support, it alleviates those distractions and those kind of petty wars that kind of happens within your athletic department. And so for me, it was always operating in transparency and in truth. And even if the truth wasn't always pretty, we could always work from there, but I didn't want to sugarcoat things and make it appear that, things were not what they actually were. So we always operate in transparency and truth, and then knowing that I'm of service.
Well, I love that, that I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're going to tell
Yeah.
the truth. We're going to be respectful, but whether it's coaches or parents or student athletes, I had a basketball coach at one of our schools. He did a great job, and we kind of adopted his
Mhm.
tagline. I'm always going to tell you the truth. And, you might not
Yes.
like what I have to hear, but, we're going to talk about, how we can go from there. And again, you're talking to a basketball player, you know, you're probably not going to get a Division I offer, but we can find a place for you to play if that's what you want. So, always going to
Yes.
tell you the truth. And the idea of service. I've told the story a million times when I was when I came on at the McClay School up in Tallahassee. You probably know about the
Right.
McClay School, pretty
Yes.
successful program. When I
Yeah.
came on as the AD, the very first thing I did that summer, sent an email to all the coaches. Hey, come on in. Just want to say hi, want to meet you. And we had between high school, middle school, varsity, JV, assistants, you name it. We have probably had close to 100 coaches. Almost every single one came in that summer, and I all said, "Hey, thanks for coming in. I just want to ask you one question. What can I do to make your job more fun? What are some
Yes.
things I can take off your plate? For example, the previous AD had them doing all the eligibility stuff. I said, no, I'll do that. Don't worry about it. You coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was the best thing that I ever did. I wish I would have done it at my other stops, but it just gave me just instant, wow, this guy,
Yeah.
think he cares about us. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, listener, sounds like you got a great young resource here, or just wants to add you to their network, how do our listeners get a hold of Malcolm Pollock?
They can email me. My email is mpollock, POLLOCK at FHSAA.org. Email is great. Shoot me an email anytime you have any questions or anything that I can assist with. I enjoy getting to know people as well, and it allows me to learn. Because like you said, I'm newer here to the association. So anytime questions are asked, it's an opportunity for me to grow and learn, as well as the person who's asking the question. So we're kind of going through it together. So feel free to reach out through email, and I'm here to be of service in any way that I can.
Okay. And we're going to give that email out again, but it's Pollock at FHSAA.org. And
Yes.
speaking of FHSAA, that's what we're going to be talking about next. So let's take our next break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was just a great experience. It's affordably priced, it's just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, Ohio University also throws in 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Welcome back, everyone. Once again, we're visiting with Malcolm Pollock. He's an athletic administrator with the Florida High School Athletic Association. Malcolm, you're from Florida originally, grew up, went to high school and college here, left the state to teach and coach and become an AD. What attracted you about this position with the FHSAA, specifically about the opportunity to work in eligibility and compliance?
Randomly, as a basketball coach or basketball coach mentality, I should say, every off season, I'm since 2012, I'm gonna go on the message boards or the job boards and see what jobs are available in states that I've identified that have good programs. And so I was going to the association's website to see, what coaching jobs were possibly opening. I actually had applied to Bay High School out in Panama City to be the head basketball coach. And so every week, like clockwork, I'm going to log into the FHSAA website, go to classified, and I'm going to see what's available. This time when I went to the website, I actually saw a job that was available with the association. And so I'm like, wait, I've never seen a job that was actually open with the association. I've always, I've only saw coaching jobs or AD jobs. And so when I saw it, I read the description, and then just based on, again, it's just how life kind of works, how you stated earlier, you don't understand in the moment things that are happening. But then later on in life, you're like, man, this is all connecting the dots. And so as I read through the description, I realized that my experience, my work experience, my life experience, it sort of prepared me to make the transition here throughout the association. And so as I read the job description, when it came to eligibility and compliance, I think when people think about the association, they automatically think of the sports side of things. But the way that my mind particularly works, especially with my psychology background, I like dealing with eligibility and compliance because it's problem solving. You know what I mean? You're kind of like a resource to solve issues. And so I enjoy answering questions. I enjoy, kind of being, directly dealing with coaches, ADs, and parents to resolve issues specifically related to eligibility and compliance. And so I applied to the job without any expectation. Just kind of, hey, I saw it there. I'll apply for it, and didn't expect to hear back. I was hopeful that I would, but I just kind of, I'm a basketball coach. I'm a teacher. So if, in my mind, they're looking for somebody completely different than me, and so I applied to it. I ended up hearing from, Miss Brandy Warder. She called a couple of days after I applied and offered me the opportunity to interview. I came down from North Carolina, drove through the night, got here and interviewed. And I could tell you that from the moment I walked into the building, this was my first time coming to this building, first and foremost, because as a coach, you don't associate the Florida high school athletics with being your partner. You kind of see them as like us versus them. And that's a misconception, if I'm being honest, now that I'm within the association. And so when I walked in, I was like, man, I got a weird feeling that this thing could work out. And it was the first time that I felt that it was probably going to work out. This was before the interview. I could just kind of feel it. And then after the interview, I met Craig, I met, other staff members, and it just felt right. And they offered me the job, and I gladly accepted, and it gave me the opportunity to transition back to Florida, which is what I was ultimately looking for my family. I have 3 young kids and, my wife. And so we were in North Carolina kind of by ourselves. And so this gave me the opportunity to transition closer to home, closer to family. And I kind of missed Florida, to be honest. And so it gave me a chance to be back home, and it was the perfect situation for me.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up that idea. And it's more than an idea of the us versus them. I can tell you when I first came to Florida, as a coach and AD way back in 2000, I think at that time, again, this is 24 years ago, that might have been closer to the reality than a perception. And I think it's,
Yeah.
under the leadership of Craig Damon, maybe even his immediate predecessor, where it's definitely not that way anymore. And I think Craig and the
Yeah.
staff, including you, are taking intentional steps to make
Mhm.
um, that perception become more the reality with coaches and
Yeah.
ADs,
Yeah.
that it is, we are partnering together. Um, before I think it was, here's the rules. And I remember calling up, hey, I'm asking, I got a question about this rule. And I would be told, well, it's in the book.
Oh.
Okay, well, help me out here.
Yeah.
And now it's again 180 degrees opposite of that. They will walk you through. Well, here, it's in
Yeah.
section 6. It's right here. Do you understand it? It's much, much better. And it's education, and it's about prevention rather than gotcha. Now I know you've only been on staff in the building, let's say for a couple of months. What are some things that I guess are sticking out to you right now as both exciting to get involved with from an eligibility compliance standpoint, and also some challenges, some things that, boy, we're really going to have to work hard on this particular thing. Anything jump out at you yet?
Yeah, so for me, exciting. I mentioned earlier in the conversation that I was in the, ROTC and Sheriff Explorer program. So I guess the cop in me, the child in me enjoys, chasing the allegations, because that's the first thing that catches your attention. You're a part of the eligibility and compliance. You get so many allegations, from different schools and different people, and so it gives you a chance to kind of learn the lay of the land, and you get a chance to you talk to people more through the allegations because you have to now reach out to them, right? And so you have more conversations, and it gives you a chance to get to know the ADs. It gives you a chance to get to know coaches and different things like that. And it was a chance for me to build rapport because there's some schools, unfortunately, that you're only going to communicate with them when there's an allegation, or when they do something wrong. And so that has been, something that I found, to be interesting. Is just how many allegations, come into us. But another interesting thing is just how involved we are with student athletes, the different programs, the different award ceremonies, the different scholarships that are offered throughout the association, the different leadership conferences and different things that we have throughout the year centered around student athletes. I wouldn't have known that until I became a part of the association. And so there are a ton of great opportunities for student athletes to be involved and to be a part of the association through a different channel. And those are things that are probably not highlighted enough. You'll see them on social media, but it's rarely spoken about within your local schools. And so I think that has been a surpriser to me. The challenge, to be honest, the one challenging thing at this point is NIL, obviously. And it's not a challenge to deal with it. It's just so new and fresh for everybody. And so what's happening is, we're dealing with a bunch of questions, or we getting a bunch of allegations, or attorneys are reaching out. Everybody's reaching out, trying to figure out, hey, how do we navigate this space? And so it's been pretty cool from a standpoint of you get to see this new law kind of come into action, and be added and allow students for opportunities to earn income through their name, image, and likeness. But then there's this other side where you're kind of navigating the space that have not been navigated within our association. And so it's a constant learning process. And there's days where you're like, hey, somebody will call in and they'll have a specific, example for you. And you have to say, hey, I'll give you a call back. We're dealing with this stuff in real time. And so that has been a challenge. And I know next year, this time, it'll be, a walk in the park, like as far as we'll have a year under our belt. But as of now, it's been interesting journey with NIL.
Well, you bring up NIL, and
Yeah,
pretty much every state now, they either have a policy. Florida recently, published theirs, or they're in the works to create a policy for NIL. What I'm not aware of another state in the country outside of Florida at the high school level that has to deal with the transfer portal like we
yeah,
do. We've
yeah,
had the transfer portal for high school. It's not
yeah,
called that, but the reality that's exist in Florida for 4 or 5 years, and it's not the
yeah,
FHSAA, it's our state legislature. So that's a
yeah,
whole nother episode and interview. Goodness gracious! But
yeah.
um, Malcolm, this has been really cool spending some time with you. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. I know, again, we're recording this September 3rd. The ADAC meetings tomorrow. It's not going to
Yes.
be in Gainesville. It's going to be on Zoom, but I'll be
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
Zoom call. But it's been cool spending some time with you, and appreciate you sharing, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's take
Okay.
that final break. And when we return, we'll see what Malcolm Pollock puts into his new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys, and we appreciate them sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group, and all they want to do is complain. Well, Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they will also connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're talking with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Malcolm Pollock. He's a longtime teacher, coach, counselor, athletic director, and he recently joined our staff here in Florida at the Florida High School Athletic Association as an administrator in the area of eligibility and compliance. As you can hear, he's got a tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Malcolm, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
So from an AD standpoint, I'm gonna group these together, what I call them the 3 Ps, which is punctual, precise, and prepared. So the 3 Ps, we're going to group them together. And I say punctual just because you have to pay attention to detail, because details matter. Being on time or being early, all of those things matter. Just because you're setting the tone for your athletic department, and you can kind of alleviate some things by just being early. All right, thinking ahead before things should arise, which kind of goes into being prepared. You got to think through every scenario of what can go wrong, and have something in place for it in the event that it does go wrong. You got to just be prepared for anything to unfold, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to weather the storm, because people are going to call you to put out fires. People are going to call you to problem solve. And if you have not, prepared yourself for these issues to arise, there's no guarantee that you'll have the answer that they're looking for, because ultimately they want you to stop whatever this is happening. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to alleviate those things. And so precise, when I say precise, meaning the way that you operate has to be consistent. You have to do things a consistent way, because ultimately, again, you're setting the tone. And so when it comes to dealing with the handbook, or when it comes to giving out information, and when questions are being asked of you, the only way to be precise, prepared, and punctual is by knowing what's expected of you, and putting forth the amount of time, energy, and effort into what it takes to be a professional in that specific field. So if I'm an AD, I have to spend time in order to be precise, prepared, and punctual. I have to really be committed to it. So I think those three things could alleviate a lot of hiccups and headaches that happens when you're ADing, because the turnover for an AD is, they just don't survive, if we're being honest. And most of it is due to stress and a lack of appreciation, for the most part. It's at the end of the day, the job isn't worth it, the headache and all that comes with it. It's not just sports and games, it's a lot more to it. And so if you can have those three P's together, the second tool for me would be character. You got to have a high character to be able to navigate, because you're responsible of a lot of things, a lot of people, and you're not going to always get people's best. And so you can't allow what you get to determine what you give, right? So sometimes you're going to get people's worst, but you can't give them your worst. You still have to give them your best, even if they give you their worst. And ultimately, when it comes to character, you're dealing with student athletes, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with coaches, and they're not always operating at their best self. And so there must be some grace that is given to those individuals so that you can best serve them. And without character, sometimes, or with low character, you'll find yourself kind of fighting a lot of petty wars and taking things personal. And ultimately, it affects how you're not going to get the most out of your coaches. You're not going to get the most out of your support staff because you're offended, or you're not operating with high character. And then the last one for me, the last tool, and again, this is just something that I would throw in there for myself, would be a level of passion and understanding. I wanted to say love, but you don't always love what you do. But I wanted to say love. That's the word that really comes to mind. But I would say a level of passion, because again, it starts and ends with you as the AD. It starts and ends with you. And so for me, when it comes to like your coaches should be able to feed off of your energy or your excitement or your passion for your school, for your admin, for their sport, and for your coaches. So without passion, I just don't think that you're going to survive it, because it's such a rigorous job and a thankless job sometimes that it will get the best of you if you enter it without the right headspace. And so for me, when it comes to being an AD, it's more mental than physical. And so for a new AD, I would kind of focus on those things like, hey, you know, be passionate about what you do, be prepared, be precise, and be punctual, and then operate with character and integrity. And so I think those things will keep you around whatever you do for quite some time.
Oh, absolutely. I love all
Yeah.
of them. The passion, we always tell our coaches, hey, we want to see you passionate about your sport. AD's got to be passionate about all those sports too. Character, absolutely. And I love your three P's. You actually squeezed in a couple extra tools there. I love it. Great
Yeah.
thinking on your part.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Typical AD
Yeah.
style. Um, Malcolm, again, this has been great. One more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is email. I'm saying email because I'm not always at my desk to get my phone, but my phone does get all the emails. And so my email is mpollock, POLLOCK, at FHSAA.org. Feel free to reach out at any time, send emails. It is a busy season, but uh, I do have a competitive edge where I try to get back to my emails within 24 hours. So you'll get a response back pretty quickly from me through email.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much for being on the show, Malcolm Pollock, Florida High School Athletic Association. Um, all the best with the coming fall season and on into winter sports. And we'll definitely be able to connect at some FHSAA or FIAAA events this year.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I'm grateful that you shared your platform with me. It's been fun.
Oh, well, thank you. For our listeners, we're grateful for you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back for our next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.